Hi guys, Kenny Nair here. In this video, I will be talking about some of my training fundamentals for the URA scenario if I'm not using a friend card. I will make another training video for the MLCM, which is Cancer Cup, which will feature the use of friend cards like Aoi and Taluna. Gemini is pretty much the only exception where it might be a better idea for most people to not bring a friend card due to the really high stamina requirements, even though when I tried it myself, it's still possible to hit 1200, 1100. So these are the parents that I'm using for the CM because I don't really have much time to play recently. Been very busy at work. They pretty much just have the bare minimum stuff. 3-star blues on the grandparents and the pinks that I want on top of the generic whites and straightaway spirit on the other side. The team that I will be running will either be Maya plus 2D buffers or Daiwa plus Maya and a nature just for the funny if I ever get Sayun Sky. I want to build around Daiwa Lucky Senko, or Lucky Pace rather. So, as you might have noticed, the deck choice is pretty weird here to say the least. I've been asked by my friends if there are any substitutes for Fine Motion, and the really high cap deck that Erzzy recommended when we were talking about Gemini. So, I'm trying to see what running Fuku over Fine Motion feels like, just in general. I personally think that running 4 speed 2 stam on most Umas for the next CM would be much easier for most people, even for those who don't have MLB everything. But an alternative to that is 3 speed and 3 stam for Umas that doesn't have stam bonus, or if you don't have your own stam inherits. So just a quick disclaimer, most of my training gameplay will be sped up, and as you all are probably familiar with right now, the main objective in year 1 is to just build your support cards bonds while trying to raise your training levels for future turns. Here are my own criteria for how good a specific training will be. I will use a point system when teaching, just like most other people do. So in this scenario, I usually give 1 point for each support card in a training, an additional point for hints, because triggering a hint event would net you an additional 5 bond for that support. And that would also mean that if there's 2 or more hints in one training, it will only count as 1, because only one hint event can proc. It's gonna be 50-50 if there's 2, or like 33% if there's 3. It's also important to add an extra point for a support that has a win condition hint for your Uma. Say, for the upcoming Mile CM, it's gonna be the greens, but for this current CM in Gemini, it's gonna be Amazon with straightaway spirit if you're running her. And only for end closers, of course. For future CMs, the bias would vary depending on how impactful the skill is and how large an Uma's hint pool is. I mean, the support card's hint pool is. So, there's another point for clicking wit because you don't really spend energy when you click it. And here are just some additional factors that I don't really think that much about when I'm training personally. But as a baseline, you can add 2 more points for rainbows that has an additional bond with it. So let's say there's a 1 rainbow plus 1 bond. That's gonna be 3 points total for me. So because training rainbows with an additional bond are probably the most efficient clicks in year 1. And for me personally, that's how I can tell if my run is being good. I mean, if my run is good or not. Also, I add half a point for each training that I have cards for. So for next CM, for most people, I think it's just gonna be speed and stam that's gonna have this kind of bias. So in this case, even though I'm running a wet card, speed and stam requirement is so high that I wouldn't just count wet anymore. So Director and Reporter are also both nice to haves and can be counted as tiebreakers, but they don't really get extra points since it messes up the general count. My personal gauge of how good a run usually is if it has an average of 2.5 points per turn. But it could be higher or lower depending on how much effort or tolerance you have on your runs. Say, if you're if you're relying on your rentals for your ace runs, it's gonna be fine if your standards are slightly lowered. Say a good run would be 2 points for you instead of 2.5. It's totally normal if you're going for consistency. And say if you have your own parents and you don't mind quitting a lot of runs, your tolerance could be like 2.75 or 3. Normally, my tolerance would be 30% for trainings with 3 or more points, and something in between 45 to 60% for higher reward trainings during the first year. But it's also fine to play safe if you just want consistency. Again, it's just a matter of playstyle. I won't force you to do things, but having a good sense of what rewards are worth risking for is one of the best skills that a trainer could have in UMA. Because most of the time, risking more would net you more rewards. In the future, I could stream my own ace runs so you guys could see how much runs I quit for CMs that I'm really invested in. But I don't think that's gonna be the case in the near future, or at least for Gemini, because I'm pretty busy at work. Okay, so this is a tough one. There's 3 people plus reporter and guts, but there's a rainbow with an additional bond and stamina. Knowing that it's pretty challenging to hit the stamina goal in Gemini, I would want to prioritize clicking stam for the stat itself and its training level. But say if it's for the mile CM, I wouldn't mind clicking guts here. Normally, it's always bottom here because the odds of your Uma getting overweight is small, but since we're at full energy, you can just go press stop. My own personal tolerance here is bottom whenever I'm below 90 energy. Or like, as long as my energy is not 100, I just click bottom for the extra 5 skill points. Also worth noting that if you get the full plus 30 energy into overweight, clicking infirmary will give you plus 20 energy, which is basically the same amount of energy that you would get from a normal rest roll. So it's also gonna cost you 1 turn, so it's pretty much a fake debuff at that point. It's only gonna hurt you if you press the plus 30 energy, got overweight, and have maxed energy at the next training. But you can click any other training turn to spend your energy to offset it, if there's any good training, of course. And also worth noting that overweight can cure itself magically, so there's that. Okay, so I insta-clicked speed here to catch up on my stamina space for the run, but I think it's more correct to look at all the trainings, even though that's a really good click. I would have clicked training with 3 or more bonds and other trainings in this case. I haven't made a base sheet for Gemini yet, since my own sample size of training data is pretty low, but this is what it looked like for us in Taurus. So here's an example of me clicking bottom on food events, even without its max value, even if I don't get the full plus 30. Since I'm not completely ahead right now, I opted not to click quit so I could still be open for better trainings on the next few turns. This turn's just atrocious, and my only 2 options right now are either resting or racing. Since I'm still not comfortably ahead of pace, I opted to rest here, and it follows the same idea with the last time about being open in the future turns for better trainings. Normally I would just rest in one of the 2 turns in June, but since I high rolled and got double rainbows, it's reasonable for me to sacrifice 2 summer turns for 2 double rainbows, since double rainbows would normally net more stats in total than a single rainbow. I mean, single summer rainbow. I instantly got punished, but I was trying to go for consistency anyway. So this is always better than not getting rainbows at all, in my opinion. I chose speed here, so I won't fall behind on pace versus my stamina, like I mentioned earlier. This has always been a widely known truth on JP. It's just the energy or the skill points option for Senior New Year since the stats are incredibly low value at this point of the run, especially for future scenarios. Normally, one rainbow would net you around 30 total stats at least, and a little bit of skill points for around 19 to 22 energy, as we can see this chart that's available in game Tora, or even extra energy for a wit rainbow. Same deal with skill points. It's a resource that's pretty hard to get right now in URA, since it's hard to find wiggle room to squeeze races in due to the amount of stats needed for CM. But stats are generally the worst option here, so it's so spread out with very low values. Say, you don't really need the plus 15 from uh, power, guts, and wit combined if you're already falling behind on one of your two primary stats for Gemini. Some of you might have been thinking about why I haven't tried fixing my mood since I got the mood down event last year. Normally, real and good JP vets would use friend cards to fix that. In this case, it should have been Aoi. That's why we bring them on top of a ton of other benefits. But since I'm not bringing a friend card, I just waited for this event instead. And I still had a few mood up events in my event pool from the support cards that I brought. My own personal tolerance for fixing my Uma's mood is 5 to 6 training turns. So if it's possible for me to get a mood up event within that threshold, I would just keep it as is. Same goes with the end of the run if I get a mood down around December in the senior year. This is a very awkward turn for me since I only have 3 training turns left until summer, and my energy is in a weird spot right now. I'm behind on speed because normally my comfy amount would be at least 850 or more here. At least for Gemini, or more like in general. My choices are either clicking wit or race. I think both of them are correct, and it's going to be a matter of playstyle for this one. I chose wit since I'm hoping that one of my next 2 turns would reward me with a rainbow. So choosing race would leave me with 1 rest turn in summer, which is also fine, but clicking wit increases my odds for more flexibility in the next few turns. After taking my time to think about it, I just clicked the Kita Rainbow since the training is level 5 anyway. Resting in summer would just mean that I won't get Night Owl for sure. I would say that clicking wit earlier paid off because I wouldn't be able to click the speed rainbow if I raced. So it's kind of like it's more like bad luck protection for me for if I ever not, I mean if I ever don't get rainbows in summer. This is another bad turn with my mood being orange and my energy at being full. I opted to date and hope for better speed turns since at this rate it's going to be hard for me to hit my stat goal anyway. I chose Stam here after realizing that I didn't get Maestro and cooldown, but it's a dead run anyway. But I still tried to put some thought into it because this is the video that I was going to show to you guys. Alright, that's the end of the run. For the next one, Erzzy and I will work with Crazy Fellow to simplify lazy and try-hard parent making options for CM, depending on how much time you want to invest in Uma. Thank you all for watching. I hope that we helped. If you have any questions or any feedback, you can leave it in the comments and I'll try to respond to everything. Thank you.